Welcome to Jessa's podcast. Today's topic is on ASEAN and the South China Sea. I'm sitting here with my longtime friend, Associate Professor Hazmi Rusli. Hazmi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Welcome and thank you for coming.
It's always a pleasure.
So, how are you, Hazmi? You good?
I'm good. It's Jogja. Those who come to Jogja will always feel good.
Right. Hazmi, in Southeast Asia, we have a long history of maritime tradition, dating back to like Sriwijaya, Mada, and even Malacca Sultanate. How do you think it has influenced the contemporary maritime issue or maritime governance and also cooperation in the region so far?
Right. It's a very interesting and intriguing question because it combines both history and the political realities that we have today. Historically, it is not too exaggerating to say that we used to be part of the same nation at one point of time. Because if you look at history, that's the reason why during the Srivijayan time, Majapahit, during the Malacca Sultanate time, certain parts of what is today Malaysia and certain parts of what is today Indonesia used to be part, not even sovereignty, maybe part of the same, under the influence of a certain kingdom.
Right.
Yeah. So that's also one of the reasons why we share so many similarities together. In fact, if I come to Indonesia, I'm a Malaysian. If I come to Indonesia, I notice certain similarities in terms of food, in terms of the culture. We are very Eastern, and then the language, and then the taboos and whatnot. So that is, I think, originated from the fact that we used to be part of the same country until we were separated after colonization.
Right.
So in terms of cooperation, sometimes being, what I can term as serumpun,
Right.
brings a lot of benefit where we share a lot of things. I can listen to your song, songs in Indonesia, Indonesian language without any problems. You watch Upin and you enjoy it so much more than us Malaysians. So that is among the advantages. Among the disadvantages, sometimes may lead towards unresolved maritime disputes. We have a lot of unresolved maritime disputes, Andy. So sometimes I think the concept of serumpun maybe contribute to that particular shortcoming. But I think going back to the main issue at hand, yes, we are actually not that different, but politically speaking, in reality, we are in different countries. So whatever it is, we have to put our national interests as a priority without undermining good relations, neighborly relations between each other.
Meaning that because we had before very close relationship, so you should actually take basically lesson from that in order for us to build the connection.
Yes.
Okay. Talking about the maritime relationship or governance, we also refer to law. Before we talk about the tradition, we had all the tradition.
Yes.
But now we have the law.
Yes.
This international law, especially the law of the Sea Convention. UNCLOS, right?
Yeah.
Because we had our tradition before,
Yeah.
and now we have the new or the modern law.
Yeah.
How do you think this new law, like UNCLOS, is still relevant or important for the region in order for us to govern our ocean?
Okay, another intriguing question, and this you have brought me to another level, because first you were talking about tradition,
Right.
and then now you're talking about modern realities. Traditionally historically speaking, I'm a Malaysian, and my ethnicity is Minang.
Right.
My family came from West Sumatra, but this was before the modern boundaries was created.
Right.
So at that time, there was no passport. Exactly, right? So we people around the archipelago, the Malay archipelago, or we call it Indonesian archipelago today, they can freely move from one place to another without any hindrance. So this is history, but modern modern setting has put a certain limitation on this. when Indonesia and Malaysia were born out of independence from the British and the Dutch respectively. So there are requirements to ensure borders are being taken care of. So the fact that my ancestors or your ancestors or people from this region used to move freely in the past can no longer do so today. So that's number one. And number two, when there is borders, so we have to take care of it. I remember reading your article. You said good fences create good neighbors. So whenever now we have maritime boundaries to talk about, so we have to focus on that. Free immigration cannot be allowed anymore. This is not the time of Sriwijaya or Majapahit or Malacca Sultanate that we can freely roam around. We can do that, but now it's with limitation, with national boundaries. And with these national boundaries comes maritime entitlement, like territorial sea, the east side, continental shelf, something like that. So that is how the modern setting has made it different than what it used to be in the past.
Okay, so we have just to understand and accept somehow, right?
Yeah.
Back then we had tradition or practice, but now we are in modern world, so we also have to respect the current law.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. Talking about this region, Hazmi, one of the famous infamous issues in the region is the South China Sea.
Yeah.
Right? That's one thing. But we are ASEAN.
Yeah.
So ASEAN is identical to what I call peaceful dispute settlement.
Yes.
Regional cooperation.
Exactly.
Which is good, which is positive.
Mm.
How do you think that positive character do you have good or bad influence to how we handle this South China Sea?
Right. But before I answer that, I would like to extend the question. Extend the answer from the previous question because I talk about history. We are talking about South China Sea. That is how China is perceiving the South China Sea. They look at South China Sea as what it used to be in the past, in the Ming Dynasty, in the Qing Dynasty, or something like that. That can no longer sustain because right now in the modern contemporary world, we have maritime boundaries. With maritime boundaries comes maritime entitlement. Okay, so that is one thing, and another thing is that when we gain independence, it's not just Malaysia and Indonesia. It came together with other countries like Philippines and what do you call that? We have Brunei later on and Singapore. Okay, and other countries in the Indo-Chinese region. So we are in ASEAN, and ASEAN believes in the concept of Zopfan. Okay, because we are now in CESA, so we have to use these terms which is used popularly in international relations studies. So ZOFAN is Zone of Peace, Freedom and Neutrality. So meaning we do not condone war, even though recently Thailand and Cambodia got into this slight skirmishes, but relatively speaking, ASEAN has always been peaceful. Okay, we have skirmishes with Rendang, Batik, but Malaysia and Indonesia have never gone into war with on this kind of issues. So relatively speaking, we are peaceful. We do not interfere with the affairs of other states, and at the same time, we respect territorial integrity of each other. Okay, the advantages of this is that we are able to have a peaceful and stable region if compared to the Middle East or in certain parts of Africa where it's quite volatile, but we are very peaceful. However, one of the principle of non-interference may cause a little bit of difficulties whereby we cannot actually, I do not mean to interfere, we cannot actually try to resolve the problem faced by our neighbors. For instance, Rohingya issues. Not only in Malaysia. They came from Myanmar, they took the boat to Thailand, Malaysia and Indonesia, and we cannot tell Myanmar, we do not have the right to tell Myanmar to stop doing that. So because of these certain principles, I think, for example, principle of non-interference, there are advantages in that, but it also comes with disadvantages. That is the Rohingya issue is one of those disadvantages.
So this character, how can it contribute or not contribute to this South China Sea?
It contributes in a way that each countries respect the maritime claims of each other, but at the same time, if you remember, I remember the lecture I had yesterday. One of the question was that why not we resolve the problems with the overlapping maritime claims with ASEAN countries first
Right.
before facing China.
Mm.
Okay, so when we have this principle of non-interference, so to speak, we are unable to resolve problems among ourselves.
Okay.
We respect the territorial integrity and sovereignty of each other, which is enshrined in not only the ASEAN Charter,
Right.
but also United Nations Charter. But at the same time, we cannot resolve the problems between among ourselves with regards to overlapping maritime claims, with regards to political instability in certain countries within the region, and this may cause problems. And the problem is it's difficult to end. Even Malaysia and Indonesia ourselves,
Right.
we have overlapping maritime claims that we are unable to resolve right until today, and we have gained independence for more than 5 decades. Both countries.
80 years for Indonesia.
Yeah, 80 years. We are like 60 years.
Okay. But I think one good news, Hazmi, I think you're also aware of this. Indonesia and Malaysia, we did actually delimit our borders back in the 60s.
Yeah.
At least we started and we done something.
Yes.
Indonesia and Vietnam also did the delimitation twice at least. So I agree with you that it is not easy, but at least we in
That's
ASEAN,
right.
we started, right? So, okay, right.
But in South China Sea,
It's a different,
yeah.
it's a different story. Also, if I may inform the audience, because the basis or legal basis that we use is different. So we both, at least Malaysia, Indonesia, and Vietnam, for example, we use UNCLOS.
Yes.
So it's very clear up to where our 12 and 200 nautical miles is. But for China, it's a different story because they use a different basis. So that makes it
difficult.
More complicated. Right. Now, I remember that Malaysia was the chair of ASEAN. Was it last year?
Last year.
Last year, right? So from your perspective, because whatever happens, we really have to deal with this South China Sea.
Yeah.
What actually, in your opinion, the issues involved in there? I mean, what are the details of the issues, and how can, and from your perspective, international diplomacy, international law, can actually contribute to maintain or improve the security and stability in the region?
Like you said earlier, UNCLOS is there. The law is clear.
Right.
The ASEAN nations have maritime entitlements and maritime claims over the South China Sea, but there is one country which disregard the application of UNCLOS in terms of delimitation of maritime claims,
Right.
and this caused a little bit of a problem. So when law is not followed and superpowers like, for instance, China start to exert their own influence or their own power on certain maritime area, it causes difficulties. And the fact that they do not want to be abide by the 2016 Permanent Court of International Arbitration Award on how they look at South China Sea, it shows that they are adamant with their claims. So when law doesn't work, it now then resort to international diplomacy.
Right.
That is the reason why at the moment, since there is a deadlock in terms of the application of the law itself, so we have to resort to international diplomacy in order to ensure that states do not go to war because of South China Sea. Because if you have war, then it will be stability. And honestly speaking, China is a superpower.
We have to.
Yeah, we have to admit that, and we do not want to go against China on this. So what the best thing to do is that to negotiate, because in my opinion, communication is key.
Right.
Countries in the past, they went to war because of communication breakdown.
Okay.
Yeah, so when they communicate, they manage to rationalize things.
Right.
So only then we can move forward. So I think, in order to answer your question, not really the failure of UNCLOS, the fact that it is not being used it's not being applied in totality, then international relations should be the next resort in order to ensure peaceful settlement is preserved among countries.
All right. Interesting. Now, South China Sea is certainly there. We also have other issues.
Yeah,
The Strait of Malacca.
exactly.
And Singapore. Very important strait,
Yeah.
waterways, like 50% of the world trade actually pass through there.
It's actually more than that.
Yeah, right. One interesting thing, Hazmi, recently we also had the Hormuz Strait issue, right? So what happens in Hormuz? Somehow if I may use my own word, trigger or motivate the way we look at this, how we treat the Strait of Malacca, for example. What is your opinion about how can we actually learn from what happens in the Strait of Hormuz in order for us to better manage the Strait of Malacca?
One thing for sure, the strait should not be closed for navigation. Okay, that's one thing. The law is clear. Article 44 of the Law of the Sea Convention states clearly that states bordering straits must not hamper navigation through straits used for international
Thank
navigation.
you for saying that, because some people really had that ideas. But
It's
in the-
impossible. It violates international law at its very core.
Right.
So, like for instance, the suggestion of implementing tolls, it's not possible because Article 26 of UNCLOS states clearly that for the purpose of navigation, tolls cannot be collected. In fact, in my thesis back in the days when we were in Wollongong, I remembered specifically chapter 8 of my thesis. I discussed on the toll mechanism for Straits of Malacca.
So you said toll meaning like pajak or like tax or
Like
what is
if ships wants to pass through, they have to
it? They
pay
have to pay.
tolls. Yeah.
Okay, right.
It's impossible, but there could be mechanisms for that if it's allowed by certain mechanisms under the International Maritime Organization. Like for instance, in the Torres Strait in Australia,
Yeah.
they have to employ pilots. If they don't employ pilots who are passing through the strait, whenever they come to Australian port, these ships would be penalized. So there are mechanisms, but for the purpose of navigating per se, those cannot be imposed. So looking at Hormuz Strait, people keep saying the strait should be closed and whatnot. If the straits are closed, so I believe that United States of America and Iran have violated not UNCLOS but international law. Because both countries are not state parties to UNCLOS. But like what His Excellency Vice Minister Arif Hafaz Ogresono mentioned yesterday, freedom of navigation is customary international law, and I totally agree with him. Yeah. So bottom line, straits cannot be closed for navigation, for the purpose of navigation. Yeah.
So meaning that we should understand the issue clearly, right?
Yes.
The law that applicable to both are different. So
Yes.
we should not really use that as is
Yeah.
to motivate us to do something.
Yeah. So wherever it is, Indonesia is a country that respects the law. That's based on my observation. Malaysia as well. So as countries that respects international law, we should go by example. We should show to the world that okay, we are the caretakers of Straits of Malacca. We are not going to behave like those who are caretakers of the Straits of Hormuz. That is what I believe in. Yeah.
Hazmi Rusli, I really hope this is not going to be the last podcast that we have.
Yeah. hope so.
Thank you
I
so
hope to see you again soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you in the next Jesus podcast.